Christopher, tell me about Mel Gibson and where he's coming from in doing this.
Well, Mel Gibson has made it easy for us in this speculation. He's a member of a wacko, schismatic sect that rejects the authority of the Pope and specifically rejects the findings of the Second Vatican Council, one of the most important of which was the lifting, after centuries, of the condemnation of the Jewish people for what was once called deicide, for the murder of Christ. His father is never happier than when talking about the absence of any evidence for the Holocaust, shall I put it. And Mel Gibson repeatedly says that his father has never told him a lie. And when asked who his sources for the film are, Mr. Gibson doesn't just mention the Gospels. He mentions a 19th century German nun, Anne Catherine Emmerich, whose evidence against the Jewish people was that they used Christian blood, the blood of Christian babies to be exact, to make matzahs at Passover time. The film is incidentally set at Passover time. I think most people will be proof against the nastiness and stupidity of this film. I don't think it will be anti-Semitic in effect, because I think it's boring and it's sadistic and it's lurid in equal measure. But I think it is quite definitely fascistic in intention and fascistic in its aesthetic. And I hope that no one watching this spends their own money to go and see the film.
Because of what you just said, because it's fascistic and because...
It is intended as, and I think will fail as, an incitement. And it is intended as a piece of biblical literalism that actually is a parody even of the most contradictory and self-contradictory bits of the Gospels. St. John doesn't agree with St. Matthew. Absurd events are supposed to occur, according to the Gospels, such as the opening of all the graves in Jerusalem and dead people walking around. Not even Gibson puts that in, but he does put in a satanic succubus in the Garden of Gethsemane, for which there's no biblical authority. There's a repeated appearance of a sort of demonic, superstitious, sorcery-like figure. This is all part of Gibson's fevered imagination. And he does make it seem throughout as if Pontius Pilate is a humanitarian who is a mere serf in a Jewish empire. And actually, the Emperor Tiberius got rid of Pontius Pilate, among other things, for his brutality towards the Jews, which was considered excessive. So this is a simple-minded, claims to be literal-minded, is in fact a falsification and a fascistic one, and an incitement, I think, also to sadomasochism in the less attractive sense of that word.
Okay, before I come...
Including the music that you heard and the clip behind it. And I'll be damned, literally, I suppose, if there's any spiritual meaning in that.
I'll come to you in a
second. You're undermining my call for a boycott, I'm afraid, Mr. Denby. I was hoping to keep people away, and now you're encouraging all the sickos to flock into the movie. But you're quite right in what you say. I mean, it's very strange to me that Mel Gibson, who's also spent a lot of his time making very vulgar and persecuting remarks about homosexuals, would appear to want to make a movie that's an appeal to the gay Christian sadomasochistic niche market. But I don't pretend to understand the lurid mind of this guy.
Do you really think that's where he is?
I should say, in case I was misunderstood the first time, I don't think it is for Jews, in other words, to be condemning the movie. It's for Christians to say, this is not what our faith means to us. That it isn't supposed to be an incitement of unreason. Or at least let's hope that they would want to say that.
Christopher, I think you're right about it. All of this talk is doing nothing but putting people in theater seats. I mean, whatever boycott talk you are trying to lead is going to fall on deaf ears because of programs like this and cover stories like Newsweek, and because it is the greatest story.
I guess by writing about it myself, I've encouraged this.
Exactly
just
right.
On the point, on the Aramaic point Mr. Meacham makes, and his excellent essay in Newsweek refers to as well. Mr. Gibson claims to have removed from his film the chant by a group of Jewish people saying, "Let his blood be upon us and on our children forever." We learned this morning. In fact, he hasn't removed that scene from the film. It is still there in Aramaic. He's just cut the subtitle. So that
if you know Aramaic, then you'll hear it.
I'm sorry. I mean, when it's played in Syria and Egypt, and when it's taken around the world, where we know that anti-Semitism is not just a metaphorical or metaphysical threat. Anyone who wants to can put the subtitle right over the Aramaic, and the scene is still there. Gibson said he'd taken it out. He lied about this. He assured many rabbis he'd removed it. He hasn't. He just trimmed the subtitle. This
He
is a
didn't
guy
tell the whole truth,
whose
then,
word is worth absolutely nothing, and who knows perfectly well.
Right.
When the Pope went to Damascus a few months ago, he was greeted by President Assad, who said to the Pope in front of the Grand Mosque in Damascus, "We have a common enemy. We hate the Jews who killed your Christ." Now, the Quran actually says Jesus was not executed on the cross. So Assad was also spitting on his own holy book, as it happens. But believers will sometimes do that if they're fanatical enough, as Gibson clearly is.
Assad said that to the Pope?
Assad said exactly that to the Pope. In other words, this is not small stakes that we're playing for. When that film gets shown in that region, as you can bet it will be, as Gibson knows it will be, that statement is still in it in Aramaic, and they can put any subtitle on it they want. And yes, that's what Assad said to the Pope, even though the Quran specifically does not blame the Jewish people.
I've loaded this up, and I didn't mean to do it this way, David. Is this simply a very keen marketing mind at work, or is it something else?
I was driving through Tennessee. I was driving through Tennessee this morning, and all the radio stations were tuned to this subject. And they had an interview with Gibson, like apparently it's being relayed everywhere, where he says, "This is the end of my career. I'll never work again. I've been so brave.
Is this the Diane Sawyer interview or something else?
I've martyred myself. It's a career-ending thing." And they said, "Well, how can you say that?" And he said, "Well, you know what Hollywood's like." And by the way, if people don't understand what he's implying there, they should. He in fact was able to build very cleverly a publicity strategy of upsetting and alarming the Jewish community, and then inviting to prepared screenings only groups of extreme conservative Christian and some Jewish fundamentalists, and preventing people like myself. It took me ages to get hold of a pirate copy of the film. Magazines that take an interest in the movie industry from seeing it at all. It's a very, very cynical strategy designed for profit and crowned by his self-pityingly saying it'll put him out of business, but he doesn't care because he's doing it all for Jesus. Evidently he wants to feel pain. I think it's about time that he did.